these are my makeup product pet peeves. They're mostly related to packaging actually, and they're very petty. I will start there. They are minor things. They also make such a difference. And at the end of the video, I'm gonna share some of the opposites, like my loves when it comes to packaging and products. So we'll end it on a high note. But before we get into these things that I hate, let's start with something that I love, and that is Ellis Brooklyn. I'm so excited to say they're sponsoring this portion of today's video. So we can talk about their birthday sale that's coming up, where you can get 20% off the entire site. It'll run from June 4th through June 9th. Ellis Brooklyn is cruelty-free and vegan, and their bottles can be easily recycled because they're glass. So let me show you my top picks. Starting with their newest, this is Miami Nectar. I feel like you've probably been seeing this one everywhere. They call it a tropical gourmand, and for me, this smells like I am at the beach. Like, this is such a good summertime, delectable scent. Like, if you want that on the beach, in the sun vibe, like in a perfume, this is the one. Surprising favorite for me has been Apple Love. I'm not normally into super fruity scents like this, especially ones that are apple leaning, but this one is so well balanced, and this scent is actually inspired by New York City. They call it a love letter to New York, which I think is really sweet. But my number one favorite Ellis Brooklyn scent is Super Amber. If you are into ambery scents, this is the one. This is like a soft, sexy, musky dream. I wear this one so frequently. Let me put on a little more of Miami Nectar. All their bottles are glass. We've got a cute magnetic closure, which I love to see. I adore Ellis Brooklyn, and if you do too, be sure to check out their birthday sale through the link below. Okay, so the product that inspired this video was the new lip glossy things from Tarte. I've been seeing these everywhere, and they're coming with sponge tip ball applicators, and I'm just like, I can't take it anymore. Not everything needs a sponge tip ball applicator, and I really blame Charlotte Tilbury for this, because it started with the popularity of the Beauty Light wands, and then everyone wanted to recreate this product, and now we've seen a huge uptick in any sort of a little ball tip applicator like that. And I find it to be such an inferior application method for a liquid product. Like, yes, it kind of looks cool in a video because you'll get the little dots on the skin, but I tend to not like the way liquid products blend out if they're done directly onto the skin. 9 times out of 10, I'm putting it on the back of my hand anyways and dipping my brush into it. So the purpose of this little like doe foot thing, like it's not helping me in that process. If anything, I'm having to go back and back and back to get enough product out on the back of my hand to then pick it up on the brush to then apply it. Like, I don't need to see anything else in a little puff ball applicator. I don't know how this became the blueprint. It feels like every new launch is in this type of packaging. Started with blush, bronzers, and highlights, but now that lip products are getting into this, I'm like, I cannot take it anymore. And honestly, that could segue us into anything doe foot / applicator related. I feel like I'm very, very, very picky here. These are things that maybe it's because I test so many products. I feel very aware of what style of applicator is going to be conducive to the look I'm trying to achieve, and some just, they're not created equally, okay? And something that has been grinding my gears lately is a doe foot that has a pocket. That's what I'm gonna call it. Doe foots with a little scoop. So for example, we've got the new Makeup by Mario bronzer. It's got the double applicator. You can do the doe foot or the pump. But when we go and look at the pump, it kind of the doe foot, it kind of has this flatter area that in theory should be scooping up and holding the product. And it always looks like it's doing that. Like when I look at the doe foot, I'm seeing a large amount of product sitting on that surface. But somehow, by the time I've drawn it onto my skin and or onto my hand, there is just so much less product than the doe foots that don't have the little pocket. And maybe it comes down, I don't know, I'm not in product development obviously, but maybe it comes down less to the actual doe foot and the shape and more to the height of the like fuzzies on the doe foot. I don't really know what is stopping it, but to compare, I'm looking at the Tower 28 doe foot, which is long and skinny and doesn't have a pocket. It's completely flat. This is a dream for picking up product. There's plenty of product on both sides here. I do not have to re-dip this. To compare, the product that I think is like the worst culprit for this is the skin tint from Keys Soul Care. This one, I have to go back into the bottle so many times because almost nothing seems to get picked up on this. And now the more I'm looking at it, I'm like, is it the size of the hairs? Because the hairs are a little bit shorter on the Tower 28 one. I don't know if it's the hairs, I don't know if it's the pocket, but something about this pointy, scoopable doe foot just does not work in practice the way that it should in theory. At least in my experience. Let me know, do you love this kind of doe foot, or you're like, wait girl, I love with a scoop? For me, give me a flat doe foot any day, or even a pointy, like the Natasha Denona doe foot. This one, where it comes to more of a point like this seems to pick up the product better also. But this one actually leads me into my next one, okay? And this one, again, it's a little petty, but there's something wrong here with the component. And again, I don't work in product development, so I can't quite put my finger on what it is, but this just general theme drives me up a wall. Why is this gooped around with product the entire way around here? I think there's something with the stopper that's almost not cleaning off the wand enough so that when it gets closed, it's kind of pushing it back down there. I can't explain it. This concealer is the worst culprit for it. It is constantly covered in stuff. Like 9 times out of 10, when I close it, there will be like excess coming out the sides and I'll have to wipe it off. For a $30 concealer, like that is just unacceptable. And I love this formula. It's my holy grail, so I put up with it. But like, if you weren't the best concealer alive, like you would not be able to get away with this. I don't know what needs to change about the packaging. I think it's something in the stopper. I think it's not squeezing enough on the doe foot when it's coming off to like actually like take the product off of it. I don't know. There's too much going on and then it just becomes a goopy mess. Also, illogical pan sizes. Okay, that's what I'm going to call them. Essentially, a pan that is in, typically a palette, where the pan is not wide enough to allow for the type of brush you would probably need for that type of product. And I think a great example, the Hourglass palettes. And this was, I don't even know if this is the most like glaring example out there, but this is the one. I've been using this palette on a daily basis again lately, so this one stands out in my mind, and every time I use it, I'm just like, ugh. It is the bronzer shade in particular, okay? The other shades in here, I can make do, but the bronzer shade is so small, and to take a big fluffy brush, look, it's going past the surface area of the bronzer, so if I'm trying to get bronzer out of here, I'm gonna then get on my brush a little bit of blush and a little bit of powder. The powder, I guess, is fine because it's kind of translucent, but I don't want the blush in here. Like, at least I will say the saving grace is that this is not sitting next to the highlighter. That would be its downfall. I don't need more product, but maybe if the surface area of the pan was changed and it was thinner but wider, I don't know what needs to happen. But this isn't working. My brush doesn't fit in here. And I will say, like, this is the brush that they launched with it. And this one kind of works better when you're thinking bronzer, because this at least is like very narrow. Though it's fluffy and big, they kept it narrow and very tapered, probably with the surface area of the pans in mind. But even still, even the brush that they made for this is still not quite right. You know, it's kind of getting over into these other ones. This I notice especially in any sort of a split pan situation. That's when it can be so bad, when the pan is already pretty tiny and it's like a circular pan and it's split down the middle and you're like, I can't get my brush in here. And then what ends up happening is you're trying to be so careful about just getting the brush onto the side you want that then the bristles are so unevenly coated, and like that's a recipe for disaster. It's not going to go on the skin evenly. So I mean, you do that, you try to like even it out on the brush. Like there's just a lot of extra work required because the pan is not conducive to the size of the brush that would be required to do that step. I think actually, okay, to give a good example, I am going to do the good examples at the end. We're not there yet, but I'll sneak this one in right now. Like, I really like that packaging of the Patrick Ta bronzers because yes, this is a split pan, and like, yeah, maybe my brush doesn't fit perfectly in here, but they put a flap over the other side. So you're not going to accidentally get in there. And I don't know that that's necessarily the purpose of this flap. I think the flap is more so because this product is a cream and they want to have an extra like lid on it to keep it longer. But regardless, even if it's not the intended purpose, it does work out well where like I could just wiggle my brush around in here haphazardly and I'm not going to be dipping into the side because it's covered. Whereas if I'm doing the same thing here, I'm dipping into every single shade. This one I might be alone on. And I think a lot of people actually like this, maybe not, but it's related to powder. And you know how strongly I feel about powder, but It is a mesh sifter. I don't want this. I don't want a mesh sifter. So I get that in theory, and I need to powder my face right now, so I guess we'll just use this. I get that in theory, like you get a little bit of powder on the top and it comes up, and like if you're not using a ton of powder, I think like when I'm saying a ton of powder, if you're not using a lot of product at once, if you're going really light-handed, I could see you kind of loving a sifter because it allows the brush not to get too much product. So I can see where there's a time and a place for this, and I recognize that there's definitely an audience that would probably prefer this type of packaging. But as someone who likes a lot of powder and specifically is wanting to use a triangle puff, this doesn't work for me because if I go to put my triangle puff in it, I can't get much through the sifter, first of all, so I'm gonna have to dump it out. I think the mesh sifter is nice if you're using a brush and you don't want too much on your brush. That's the audience that this is for, and I think it works for who it's for, okay? But if you like to use a triangle puff, I'm liking to like really load up my triangle puff, copious amounts of powder on here before I'm going into my skin. So I can't get enough through the sifter, so it has to be dumped out. And in theory, you think, okay, just dump it onto the lid. You can't, because when they have a sifter, typically they've got these funky lids that have a little bit of this like protruding center so that it doesn't make a mess. So now I can't put this into the lid unless I kind of go around the sides, and then I'm trying to like get this into the sides. I can't evenly work it onto here. That's just like a no for me now when I see products that have this type of sifter. And part of my like mindset for this video is not just to complain and be petty, maybe a little, but I also think these are ideas that I have to be aware of myself when I'm purchasing products, because I've stopped myself from buying things that wouldn't work for me, knowing that these are kind of like deal breakers for me, if you will. So there might be a hot new powder that everyone's talking about, and I go and I see, I'm like, okay, well, it has that mesh sifter. I've learned from experience that does not work for me. I'm gonna skip that one. Or I could go into Sephora, look at the product and see, oh, it's got the weird little cupping doe foot. I tend to not like that. This probably will not be for me. Some of them I think are a little bit harder to know in advance, like the Natasha Denona concealer where it got all the gunk around the side. Like maybe I might have picked that up in store if I saw it and I saw it was covered in product. But for the most part, this is almost one you have to like find out, like it's too late. You find out later like, oh, the packaging is not great. And taking inventory of these preferences and needs that I have with my products has made me a way more conscious consumer and saved me from buying things that in the end would not have worked out for me. But let's talk about what is great, okay? Let's talk about things that I love. We're not gonna just complain. I have a lot of things that I adore in packaging that I get so excited to see that I think add a lot to the product. And the first one is a magnetic closure. So even going back to the example of the perfumes, this, a dream, like dream. I wish everything had a magnetic closure like this, and I understand that it's an added expense. So I get why brands aren't all doing it. Like it's not that easy to add this into a product at a certain price point. Like it's obviously gonna elevate the price, but when it has this, oh, I just eat that up. Like, especially on lipsticks, this is just like such a luxe feature for me. So this is a Bite lipstick. Miss you, Bite. We miss you. We all miss you so much. But when they, it just feels so secure. And I know it's not gonna like pop open in my bag, but I've even seen like, it can be done on a more affordable level. I know e.l.f. with their newer O-Face lipsticks, I hate that name, but the O-Face lipsticks, they have that as well. I love it every time. Also with magnets, like I just love a magnet in a product. And I understand that maybe that kind of makes it a bit harder to recycle. Like I get that it's expensive. I understand the complications of it. But from the user perspective, it just makes my experience so much more. So for example, this from Pharmacy, this is their moisturizer, the Honey Halo. I think I've gone through like 2 or 3 of these, and it comes with a metal scoop. This is empty. I'm about to recycle it, so I don't even have the metal scoop anymore, but just, we'll use our imagination here. The metal scoop is magnetic, and there's a magnet in the cap here, so you will never lose it. So, well, I guess I lost it, but that's because, again, this is empty, and I'm about to go recycle it. But when you're done with it, you just put it on, and it stays put, and you don't have to worry. It's like, yes, you could just take it and set it on top of there, and like in theory, hopefully you wouldn't lose it, but maybe you bump into it and it pops off. Maybe this, maybe that. No, when it's magnetic, it's not moving. It's always gonna be there. I mean, obviously you wanna like clean it off in between, but like that's obvious. But genius, I love to see that. The next one is easy to open lids. So First, I'm gonna show a non-easy to open lid before I tell you some of my easy ones, but like, none of us like a lid that you can't open. Like, what's the point? So the Tower 28 cream blushes, I love these. I hate having to open them because it takes a little while. Like, once you've had it for a while and I feel like I've like worn it down, now I can get it open. But I swear the first 5 times I'm trying to open this, I cannot open it, and I have to go find a little tool that I can put in there and pop in there. Maybe depending on your nails, you could get in there. I think I would break a nail trying to get in there. I don't know. So this is just so hard. That's such a tiny little surface area that you need to get into to pop it open, and it's very stiff sitting in here. Like, this is hard to open, especially if you have any sort of like mobility issues. I just see this being a big problem. But this is what I'm talking about with packaging. Okay, this is Patrick Ta again, the same bronzer I was just raving about that has the separation. This packaging, if you haven't tried any of the Patrick Ta blushes or bronzers or even like the cream foundation, like they all come in this packaging where it has this little L-shaped lip. And so this closes over here. The first time I got this, I wasn't sure how to open it because I kept thinking the top was gonna open. I kept pulling it and I was like, why won't this open? It's from the bottom. But this is a breeze because you just have to have like the bottom in your hand and then pop the top right open. Like, you just have such a prominent lip here to be able to grip onto. I just think this is a breeze versus like any other compact where it's kind of just flush like this and you have to be able to work your finger into there. I know for some people this might be like such a minor thing and you're like, I don't even notice that. But depending on like maybe if you have long nails or again, if you have mobility issues, like this can be hard to do, especially when some of them are so stiff. So I always applaud when there's this like effortless opening. This like, it's the same packaging with the blush or the bronzers. It's just way easier for the user. Also, this one might seem minor, but I love it when a product has like a flat edge to it, so it's not gonna roll. So for example, this foundation, you know, it's completely round. If I'm getting ready and I put this on the desk, it's gonna roll away. And I know this one seems so minor, but the amount of times I've set like a concealer or a mascara on my desk and tried to put it upright, but then accidentally bumped into it. It fell, rolled off my desk, rolled away from me. I'm having to get up, track it down. Like, I just love when something has a flat surface and it's not gonna go anywhere if I accidentally bump into it. I like when something is more square like this because I can set it down. It's not gonna roll, it's not gonna slide. Even like the new Fenty foundation, this is an octagon. No, hexagon? A hexagon, so it's not gonna roll off the table. Granted, again, these are little things, but I swear these little things are what differentiate the products that I find myself so much more inclined to reach for. Like, there really is something about the slightly more elevated user experience that subconsciously make me want to reach for these products over other things in my collection. Let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you so much to Ellis Brooklyn for sponsoring today's video. Be sure to check out that link below to shop their birthday sale, and thank you so much for watching. I will see you in my next one. Bye.